Just show on the road here. It is my privilege to introduce Zen Honeycutt, founder and director of Moms Across America. This is a national coalition of unstoppable moms. Moms Across America has over 400 leaders who have done 600 community events in 46 states, and all of this happened within the first 2 years of inception of Moms Across America, thanks to Zen's leadership. Zen is here to share with us the answer to this serious problem faced by many families across the country. Our children can die from the food they eat. She is here to tell her story about what she did to change her family's life for the better, and to share with us how we can all help the children. Please join me in welcoming Zen Honeycutt.
Thank you so much. I'm really very thrilled to be here. And I just want to make sure I get my timing in here. 1 second. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's really wonderful to see you here. Thank you all for coming. I know you could be at the debates, and it's wonderful to have you here. I first want to thank Sharon and Merlin and Frank and Woody and the whole team for hosting this event tonight. It really is an honor to be able to be here in the heartland of America and probably the most important state for the coming elections. I'm also honored to speak with you about GMOs, glyphosate, and America's health, and to be a part of creating a new future with Iowa and for the rest of the country. I'm here tonight as a mother of 3 and a representative of thousands of moms who reach millions across America because we are committed to creating health and freedom. I love my children and will do anything for them, as I'm sure you will for your family. We want a future of safety and prosperity for this country and for our loved ones. The problem is right now is that many of us are fearful about that. We are concerned. We have loved ones that are not well. So before we get started, I'd like to take a little poll around the room. I'd like you to raise your hand if you have a loved one in your family that has been affected by autism symptoms or ADHD. Take a look around. Just take a look. Raise your hand if you or someone in your family is affected by asthma or allergies, food allergies. That's a lot of people. Raise your hand if someone in your family is affected by obesity or diabetes. And the big one, cancer. Raise your hand if your hand went up more than once. Take a look around the room. Was it like this 40 years ago? No, it was not. And what has changed is the food. So we're going to talk about that tonight. And why did it change? Well, because the chemical companies realized after World War II that those who control the food supply control the people. So after World War II, when they no longer had the ability to spray chemicals for chemical warfare, speaking of war, they decided to declare war on bugs and weeds. And they convinced the farmers that spraying chemicals would be cheaper, easier, and improve yield and feed the world. Now, when those toxic chemicals also killed their crops, the chemical companies decided to genetically engineer the food to either withstand the toxic chemicals or to be a toxic chemical, right? To kill the bugs when the bugs eat the plant. So this is where we got GMOs. Now, can we see this, or is there a way to dim the lights?
The overhead lights are there. Those lights are
okay.
Above you. They're making it hard to see. No bells. Oh, there. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so genetically modified foods, or GMOs, are genetically engineered to either be a pesticide, BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, or to resist herbicides, and that's HT, for herbicide tolerant. The GMO is when the DNA from one species is injected into the DNA of a completely unrelated species. And that's a foreign protein that spreads throughout every cell via a bacteria or a virus. And this is an example of the BT GMO shown here, which explodes the stomach of the bug that eats the corn or soy. And that's a registered pesticide, and that's what is part of our food. Now, This means that GMOs are a chemical delivery system to human. They're increasing the chemicals in rates that we have never seen before. 80% of GMOs are HT, herbicide tolerant, or RR, which stands for Roundup Ready, engineered to withstand Roundup, glyphosate. That's the active chemical ingredient. Please look at our list on Moms Across America under data. There's a list that says the EPA list of allowable levels of glyphosate on our food. They allow 160 foods to have residues of glyphosate on it that far exceed that which causes harm and destroys gut bacteria. And I'll get more into what glyphosate does in just a moment. Keep in mind that in 2013, there was a 73% increase of Roundup use in 1 year alone. Could you imagine if you increased ingesting anything 73% more, even water, that would be harmful for you? We must consider the impact of these toxic chemicals on our environment and our children. They're also spraying glyphosate and 700 different products, by the way. And glyphosate is in 700 different products. Sprayed on our backyards, our streets, our food, and our trees. Glyphosate is a patented antibiotic. And it destroys the beneficial gut bacteria and promotes pathogenic gut bacteria. Now, why this is particularly important to understand is because the pathogenic gut bacteria, like fungus or Clostridia, different yeasts and bacteria, on the outer walls they have a thing called lipopolysaccharides. And those lipopolysaccharides signal the vagus nerve to signal the brain, the microglia cells in the brain, to go on attack because they want to get the bad bugs, right, in your gut. So they go on attack, they create glutamate, and glutamate is an excitotoxin which excites the neuron cells, the ends of the neurons, and eventually they can die. So all of a sudden then your child might develop a stammer, a tic, or start banging their head against the refrigerator, or an older person might get Alzheimer's. This is what's happening. Our bodies are attacking ourselves because of the gut bacteria, the destruction of our biome, our microbiome in our gut. Glyphosate is also a chelator. It holds or makes unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. This means that it draws out, it makes those unavailable so that you can't fight cancer, or you can't fight bugs or fungus or things like that. It's causing also DNA mutations. Glyphosate is defined on the EPA fact sheet as a reproductive effector. That means affecting the development or harm of a fetus. That's an endocrine disruptor and cause liver and kidney damage. There are many studies that document farm workers that have liver and kidney damage due to glyphosate. So we know now, many of us know that GMOs are in 85% of America's processed food, and we have the worst health. They're in soybeans, cottonseed oil, canola oil, corn, sugar beets, papaya, Hawaiian papaya, and zucchini and crooked-neck squash. And the oils, cottonseed and canola oil, people don't normally think about it, but that's your restaurant food oil. Now, why moms, right? Well, historically, moms have determined the longevity of a culture through careful food preparation. Consider that men would protect and have historically protected and provided for us, but we women have been the ones to decide what our tribes eat. Now, if we don't trust our instinct and we fed the tribe poison berries or rotten food, the tribe would perish. We had to be able to trust our instinct. However, for the past 20 years, without GMO labels, moms have not known what is in our food, and the health of our nation has declined. The reality of health in America. Of the top 17 most developed countries, the USA is last in health. Of the top developed countries, the USA is #1 for infant deaths on the first day of life. 1 out of 2 of our children have a chronic illness. This includes what I just mentioned: autism, allergies, autoimmune issues, diabetes, and obesity. 1 out of 2 American males and 1 out of 3 females are expected to get cancer today. And I say males and females and not just men and women, because many of them are our children. Pesticides are linked to a loss of IQ. American IQ has dropped 7 points since GMOs. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that means instead of 6 million people who are mentally impaired, we have 9 million. And it reverses with the gifted as well. Instead of 6 million, we have 3 million gifted. So we are literally dumbing America. That's what's happening with these toxic chemicals. Now here's what happens when you feed a pig GMOs. This is drug-free, meaning no hormones, by the way, or antibiotics. So this is just GMO-fed and non-GMO-fed. And the GMO-fed one has irritations, inflammation, stomach ulcers, just like children with autism. And the same behavior as well. The pigs are more aggressive and violent, and they bite each other, and they have a harder time learning. This is from one of my favorite Iowa farmers, Howard Vliger, by the way. And I also want to acknowledge Bob Straight is here too, another one of my favorite Iowa farmers. So this is, these reports are coming from farmers, doctors, researchers, scientists all around the world, the effects of GMOs and glyphosate. Here's what I call the proposed collateral damage of glyphosate. I may not read it all because it's just very heavy, but as an endocrine disruptor, we're now seeing the result is that we're seeing a 30% failure to conceive rate in America today. That's the highest in recorded history. As an antibiotic, what we're seeing is 24.7 million children with food intolerances. That's leaky gut. There's been a 79% increase in Crohn's disease in children just in the past 10 years. And that's only from the hospital outpatients reports. That's not from doctors' offices. This is staggering. This is a crisis that's going on in America. The gut bacteria, which I mentioned earlier, where it destroys the beneficial gut bacteria, the gut bacteria is the only place where tryptophan, serotonin, and melatonin is made. Without serotonin, you can't regulate insulin. So what's going to happen? Diabetes. Diabetes has quadrupled just in teens in the past 10 years. 29 million Americans have diabetes. 29 million Americans have diabetes, and I have to mention that within 12 years, if we don't get a handle on this, the American U.S. healthcare budget will be bankrupted just by diabetes alone. That's how it's over $279 billion, I believe, just spent on diabetes. 57.7 million Americans have mental disorders, which is also connected to serotonin and melatonin, or the lack thereof. And as a chelator, we have 117 million Americans with cancer today. It's the #1 or #2 killer of children. So it's a very serious issue. Now, how is it showing up in my family? Well, my sons, Ben, Bodie, and Bronson, that are 12, 10, and 7 now, all have food allergies. And my husband and I never did. They have allergies to gluten, wheat, dairy, peanuts, tree nuts, eggs, and carrageenan. Not all of them have all of those allergies, but they run the gamut. One of them has an allergy to carrageenan, my oldest one, and that's a seaweed food thickener that's in just about everything that kids like. It's like hot dogs, ice cream, lunch meats, sauces, and he would get a red line around his mouth, which I'll show you later, and well, I'll go into this other part first. This is how it showed up in my family. So it's Thanksgiving dinner. My son is 5 years old, my eldest son, and we're sitting in a room with 25 people happy, eating Thanksgiving food, cranberry sauce, stuffing, and I look at my son, and all of a sudden his eyes just start to glaze over, and he looks very, very sick. And I thought, oh no, he's getting the flu, or he's got stomach problems. And he says, I need to go, I don't feel good. And I said, okay. So he goes to the back room at Nana's house, and a few minutes later, I hear a loud cry. And my husband and I run to him. And we look at him, and he's covered in welts. His stomach, his neck, his face, he looks like a raspberry puffed up. And I'm so grateful that I remembered the EpiPen. So I ran, and I got the EpiPen. My husband jammed it into his leg, but he couldn't get it out. So I had to pull it out, and blood spurted across the room. And my mother-in-law is screaming, and I'm screaming, and we're realizing that there were pecans in the stuffing. So we have to run him to the hospital, and while he's in the car, his eyes roll back in his head, and I think he's gonna die. We hook him up, they hook him up to steroids, and we're in the hospital, and I'm holding his hand, and he's looking at me, and he's terrified. And his eyes are just begging for me to do something. And all I can do is hold his hand and pray. I feel completely helpless. This is not a feeling that any person should ever have for themselves or their loved ones, that their child could die from food. Now, he didn't die that day, thank God, but he did develop more allergies, and that's the one with the carrageenan, his allergic reaction. It would puff up for 2 weeks at a time. His lips would get flaky and swollen and sore. He would have to go to school like this. And it was very painful and embarrassing, and we just had to avoid food. You know, when he went to his friend's house, he couldn't eat the food there. When he went to Nana's house, when he went to school parties, none of that. So, you know, his life was limited and we were frustrated. Then we were at breakfast and, okay, well, hang on a second. I went a little too fast, sorry. You have to look at that for a few more seconds. We were at breakfast one day and he looks up at me, he's got the rash around his mouth and he's eating his food and he says to me, Mom, I really wish my allergies would go away. And I say, me too, buddy. And I realize that I'm thinking that's never gonna happen. We're gonna have to deal with this for the rest of your life, you know? And then I also realize that I'm committed to empowering people, to being somebody who's empowered and optimistic. And so I think to myself, what if we really could do something about this? So I turn to my son and I say, Ben, would you be partners with me on this? Would you, drink green drinks or try new supplements or go to different kinds of doctors? Would you help me out on this? And he said, yes. And I said, then I promise you will get better. And that was very scary for me to say because I didn't know how. But we worked on it together. And there's a saying that goes that a worried mother does better research than the FBI. And so I researched, and I found out that there are foreign proteins in our food. I learned from Robin O'Brien, The Unhealthy Truth, and Jeffrey Smith, Genetic Roulette, and I began researching like crazy. And then I got involved in Prop 37. And Prop 37 was when we were labeling GMOs in California, and I'm sitting in the back of the room. It's election night. It was the presidential election night, but I was more concerned about whether or not this labeling would pass. I was sitting in the back of the room, and the volunteer organizer was standing in the front of the room, acknowledging everyone. And I started to think about what had my role been in this campaign. And I realized that I had passed flyers out, and that was good. We need helpers. But I also realized that she was in the front of the room, and I was in the back of the room. And I thought, I didn't take on leadership. Like, my actions might have been different if I had taken on leadership. So I thought about that. I thought, what if I did take on leadership? Like, I'm the one that's going to transform the food industry. Not me by myself, but not someone else. Me, my actions, right? Then I find out we lost Prop 37, and I'm in the car in the parking lot, and I'm crying. And my son says to me, my eldest son, Ben, says, Mom, even Star Wars took 6 episodes. And I said, yeah, and they had Yoda. And so then I realized maybe it's time for a new episode, and maybe this time I'll take on leadership. What could I do to raise as much awareness as possible in the shortest amount of time? And at first I thought of marching in Washington, but then I realized mom, strollers, limited budget. So I thought of 4th of July parades. One parade, this is in Washington, one parade, 3 people deep, for 3 miles, that's a medium-sized parade, equals 49,000 people. You carry a sign that says something about moms on it, you have another, then combined with GMOs, and people are going to start wondering, why are these moms marching? What is a GMO? Right? And the guy on the sidewalk with a Coke and Doritos is going to say, honey, what's a GMO? Mission accomplished, right? So we marched in 172 parades in, I think it was 40-something states the first year. We've marched in every state since then. And people are really having a blast with it. They love doing it. They create floats, all kinds of things, all across the country. So we really invite you to get involved and really have fun with this year in Iowa. So as we're meeting all of these people all across the nation, our Facebook page went from a reach of 0 to 300,000 a week in just the first 4 months. So it's really grown a lot. We've met a lot of amazing women who have shared hundreds and hundreds of testimonials with us. The first one I'll just share is with my son. After 4 months, you can see the rash in his face went from very swollen and lasting 2 weeks to, after going GMO-free for 4 months, to only a very faint pink line and lasting only about 2 days when he was accidentally exposed to carrageenan again. And so I believe, because carrageenan is such a particularly insidious allergy, all allergies cause inflammation in the gut, by the way, but carrageenan is particularly insidious, and it's allowed in organic food as well, by the way, keep in mind. It can cause stomach cancer. So I believe, because my son's gut is able to heal from avoiding the foreign proteins of GMOs and the related pesticides, his gut is healing. So when he is exposed to the allergen, he is stronger for it, and he is able to resist it. And so I believe we are preventing stomach cancer in him. This is Jennifer Lawrenson. She said, I had an awesome team of doctors at the Children's Hospital that could not figure out what was wrong with my daughter, who was getting sick after nearly every meal. The moms posting on Facebook that their children got better when they got off GMOs saved my daughter's life. That day, I went out and bought organic food, and she stopped throwing up. And this is real. You can see her video on our website. Karen from California told us that her son had daily asthma attacks, needed glasses, and was recommended to be held back a year at school. When she found out about GMOs and switched to organic, his asthma disappeared, he no longer needed glasses, and he's now at the top of his class. Cindy from Rhode Island has a severely autistic teenage son. She found out about GMOs 2 years ago and went all organic. And she's a single mom making $40,000, so this wasn't easy, but she did it. And her son entered high school this past fall, and not one of his teachers could tell that he ever had autism. Now, these two boys have new futures because their moms found out about GMOs. And I say that our country has a new future because their moms found out about GMOs. Because who knows what these boys will contribute to our society? Think about Google, 2 boys, right? So the fact is that GMOs and glyphosate are not working. We have a food shortage is a lie. Americans waste 40% of our food. 40% of us are obese, and yet 16 million children go to bed hungry every night. It's not the food that needs to be modified, it's the food industry. This current system is all for the profit of the chemical companies who both make the chemicals that they spray on the foods and they make the drugs that make us better. I don't know if you know this, but Syngenta makes they're the largest producer of pesticides in the world. And their sister company, AstraZeneca, sells hundreds of pharmaceuticals that treat the exact symptoms that are caused by their chemicals. And Bayer, we know Bayer makes aspirin, they also make pesticides. Monsanto's parent company used to be Pfizer, but why do you think Monsanto wanted to merge with Syngenta? To have a perfect profit circle, right? And DuPont as well, they own a company called Dinesco, which is the largest provider of probiotics. You have to ask your probiotic company, like Garden of Eden and Jarrow, the last I knew, they get their probiotics from Dinesco. So now, what's happening with our food is a lot of bad news. What's the good news? You are the good news, and I'm so glad to be in a room with so many committed, active people. I really thank you very much for your dedication. Now, what can you do? Well, one of the things that we've started to do is glyphosate testing. In 2014, we set up for the first time in America the ability for citizens to test their household water and urine for glyphosate, and for the first time in the world, their breast milk, and the results were alarming. You can get your test done at momsacrossamerica.com/action. So before you see the results, I just want to share with you that only 0.1 parts per billion, that's equivalent to a drop in a whole swimming pool, has been shown to destroy gut bacteria. And gut bacteria is where 70% of our immune system lies. This is why Hippocrates said that all disease begins in the gut. It is that your gut biome is so important. Here's what we found. In upstate New York, 0.33 parts per billion. That's 3 times higher than is allowed in Europe. Why are our standards different from Europe's? This is what they're finding. Our standards, we allow, I think, 700 parts per million. Is that correct, Bob? 700 parts per million in our water of glyphosate. And this is 0.33 parts per billion. So it's lower, obviously, but keep in mind, 0.1 parts per billion is what destroys gut bacteria. In urine, we found in a female college student with cancer, 18.8 parts per billion. In my son, my middle son, we found 8.7 parts per billion. In my son, I did not say weed killer could be in my son. Now, my other 2 sons did not test positive for glyphosate, and I started wondering about why this was. And now this happened to be at the same time as a sudden onset of autism symptoms. At 8 years old, he started kicking, screaming, he got the red rash around his mouth, his grades dropped from A's to D's, he was bedwetting, really erratic behavior, like a tantrum, you know, like every day, a lot. And so I took him to the doctor, and my doctor happened to be an autism doctor, and he said, let's test him for fungus. Fungus is a pathogenic gut bacteria, right? And I thought, He tested very high in fungus and Clostridia difficile, yeast, and his levels were off the charts into the world of children with autism. And I thought, does my son have autism? And he says, no, he has autism symptoms. And I said, okay, well, this has got to be glyphosate, because he also tested him for, he's got 19 different food intolerances, many other different food actual allergies. He says he has gut dysbiosis. He said, your other children also have some leaky gut going on. And he said, the thing is, most American children have leaky gut today. Your kids are just lucky that you're testing them for it. This is very serious. Our children have holes in their small intestines. If they have any kind of food allergies, this is probably what they have. Adults as well. So it's very serious. Now in breast milk, so let me just go back to this, by the way. So in my son, once we found this out, he had high levels of glyphosate, 8 times higher than was found anywhere in Europe, by the way. We went completely organic. I realized that my son was eating wheat and my other 2 sons were not. And wheat is sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent just before harvest. This is a common practice, especially in northern wetter states. And beans, legumes, peas, sugars, tea, stevia, all of these barley that is used to make beer, they're all sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent, or can be. And so we eliminated wheat. We had to treat the fungus, which cost $650 a month. And he had to eat no sugar over the holidays, over Thanksgiving and Christmas. That was really hard. And we put in colloidal silver to restore the gut bacteria, the gut lining. And he had raw organic sauerkraut every day, and we still do. Raw organic sauerkraut has 1 trillion good bacteria in it. So we helped to restore the integrity of his gut and replace the bacteria in his gut. And within 6 weeks, we tested him again. The level of glyphosate was no longer present, and his autism symptoms were gone and have never come back. It's been 2 years. His grades are back up. His behavior is amazing. He's never had the bedwetting or the rashes or the hitting again. So this is why I am so committed to people finding out. I really believe we can turn this around. Now, in breast milk, this was shocking. So the detectable level was 75 parts per billion. We didn't think that we would find glyphosate in breast milk, but we did. 99, 76, and 166 parts per billion. And this was in the woman that did not know about GMOs or glyphosate. She was the only one. 9 out of 10 were Moms Across America supporters. This was a friend of a Moms Across America supporter. So I would suspect that the majority of women who do not know about GMOs and glyphosate may have levels at that levels, and we will find out because of this testing. A 200-person study has been funded and it is underway. So we, of course, were very upset about this. This level of glyphosate is 3,000 times higher than has been shown to cause harm in Sarah Linney's study. This was sex hormone changes and liver and kidney damage. So we called the EPA. We said, we are not going to stand for this. You need to recall Roundup because the manufacturer said that it would not show up in breast milk. It would pass harmlessly through the urine. And when a product doesn't do what the manufacturer says it's going to do, you recall it. So we did a 5-day call the EPA to recall Roundup. And by the 3rd day, the EPA said, please stop calling us. We've had 10,000 women call. And by the 5th day, they said to me, you have to stop. We have to do our jobs. And I said, your job is to recall Roundup. And we're not going to stop. And they said, well, we prefer to meet with principals. So, thank you. We prefer to meet with principals. And it just so happened I was going out a week and a half later for another convention. And I said, I can meet with you and I'll bring some moms. Well, I brought moms, lawyers, doctors, scientists, a former U.S. Marine, and there were 11 of us and 9 of them, and a 1-hour meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting, and they were riveted. They stayed in their seats, and one of the members was actually on the World Health Organization, and they got to hear us talk about all the issues with glyphosate, the cancer causing, our children's health issues, and they agreed to analyze, not then and there, but a few months later, they agreed to analyze glyphosate in breast milk, and they have delayed their decision whether or not to reapprove glyphosate for another 15 years, we believe partially because of this, because they will be announcing their results of what they found in breast milk when they announce their decision whether or not to reapprove. So we believe that speaking up absolutely can make a difference. Now, since then, a lot more people have been testing for glyphosate in food, GMO-free USA and many other different companies. It's been found in honey, in soy formula, actually in the formula higher than in the breast milk. It was 170 parts per billion. Doritos, soy sauce, bread, again, because it's sprayed on wheat. It's been found in Fruit Loops and Kashi cereal. It's also, unfortunately, been found in the feeding tube liquid that is given to children with cancer. Just shocking. Now, this hasn't made more news, I think, because it's just so bad. You know, people don't want to know this. It was over 1,000 times higher than has been shown to destroy gut bacteria. It's also been deemed a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization just a few months ago. So what are we going to do about this? First of all, I want to acknowledge that there are people that are making a difference in this cause that really should be acknowledged, the ones that really should be getting the World Food Prize. And some of them are my favorite farmers, Michael McNeil, not Michael McCain, John Kemp, and Bob Stride is here tonight. These are farmers who are educating people how to grow crops that completely resist pests and weeds without GMOs and toxic chemicals, just through nourishing the microbes in the soil and the minerals and balancing them out. These are the heroes and the future. These are our heroes of the future and of today. Also some scientists and doctors. Dr. Huber, Anthony Samsel, Stephanie Seneff, they have been the champions for educating the public about glyphosate. And they've really gone out on a limb. I mean, some of them have been attacked, physically attacked and threatened, and they've attributed glyphosate to 40 different modern diseases, and they've been called crazy for it. So they are really courageous and really should be applauded for that. And Andre Carusco, unfortunately, has passed, but he's the one who found out that glyphosate destroys gut bacteria at 0.1 parts per billion. Menardo Avila Vasquez is a doctor down in Argentina that has connected glyphosate to 9 out of 11 of the birth defects are either by glyphosate or atrazine down in around the crops that are sprayed with chemicals in Argentina, 9 out of 11. Arpad Pustai is the one who did the GMO testing on potatoes, was definitely harassed after that. Sarah Lini and the team in France, they're the ones that found out about GMOs and glyphosate. They did the only test on Roundup and saw all the tumors. Judy Carmen and Monica Kruger partnered up with farmers Ip Peterson and Howard Vliger and did the pig studies and discovered that the glyphosate and GMOs impact not only the gut, but the fertility system. And that when pigs were fed glyphosate-sprayed grains at just 2 parts per million, their miscarriages went from 3% up to 33%. That's an exact correlation with the 30% miscarriage rate that we have in America today. Also, activists and educators, Vandana Shiva, she's like the Dalai Lama of our movement. She's amazing, from India. You should look her up. And Jeffrey Smith, Robin O'Brien, Food Babe, Vani Harris really spread the awareness. Rachel Parent, 16 years old now, she started public speaking when she was 11. She's just amazing. And then I want to acknowledge one mom, Samantha from Kentucky. She marched in the first parade in the rain in a small town in Kentucky. 15 other people did not show up, but she did, with her toddler in a stroller, an umbrella, and her toddler held a sign that said GMOs equals genetically modified organisms in our food. And when she walked down the middle of that parade by herself with that sign, she got jeered, she got laughed at. And I asked her later, why did you do that? Why didn't you just leave? And she said, because I do what I say I'm going to do. Now, what if Monsanto did that? What if we did that? What if we fed our children healthy food? What if we turned around our health in America? What if Iowa became the healthiest state in America? What if you led the way? You lead the way with elections. Why not lead the way with health? What if we could turn this around? So, how are we going to regain health and freedom in America? If we don't buy it, they can't sell it. Buy organic. Moms buy 85% of the food. Everyone either has a mom or is a mom. So we ask you, number one, please tell your moms about GMOs and glyphosate and ask them to buy organic. And we support you with that in our website as well. Now, the first thing people are going to say is, but organic costs too much. And I say, really? Does it? Buying your own 5-pound bag of organic potatoes, cutting them into French fries, and cooking them at home saves a family of 5 over $917 a year compared to buying fries at a fast food place twice a week. And that's just the fries. And don't give me the thing about time either. By the time you drive to the restaurant and wait, get your order taken and sit down, you could have cooked this entire meal, right? So you absolutely can save money by eating organic. Now, if you think organic costs too much, consider, soda, $8.89 a gallon. Potato chips, $8.45 a pound. The cost for also to treat these bacterial infections, to treat diabetes, pesticide cleanup, loss of exports, the damage to our children's brains and bodies, it's all incalculable. Now, I realize because 60 million chickens have died, it's no longer $4.99 a pound for chicken. And by the way, those chickens that died were all of them were from factory farmed chickens. They were not from pasture fed organic chickens. So I realize it's more like $6.99 a pound now, but still it's cheaper than buying this junk food. Now, what can you do? I said that you would be empowered to take on your family's health issues and just know what to do about GMOs and glyphosate. So this is what you need to do. Number 1, test your water for glyphosate, just so you know. Test your water and, of course, your urine as much as you can with your family members. They cost about $119 a test. But knowing is really important. You go to momsacrossamerica.com, use a reverse osmosis filter or other water filter which has been tested and proven to remove pesticides or glyphosate, or test the water yourself, and add a few drops of trace minerals back into the water to prevent calcium chelating. You need to do, it's just called trace minerals. You can buy it in any health food store or even on Amazon. Test for glyphosate, fungus, and pathogenic gut bacteria, especially if you have a child with health issues or erratic behavior, or if you're feeling brain fog, fatigue, irritability. Just get a urine test for fungus and see what's going on with your body. I won't read all this, but basically fungus and yeast can cause all these problems. Number 3, detox and restore healthy gut bacteria. So you can do this by eating only organic and adding non-GMO vitamins and minerals. Now, make sure that your vitamins and minerals don't just say cellulose in them. That could be GMO corn husks, okay? So this is really challenging because you might need to switch to tinctures and oils like drops of vitamin B or drops of vitamin D rather than the pills, right, with the cellulose in them. So be careful about your supplements. Number 2, treating the fungus, yeast, or bacterial overgrowth. You may need to do that with medicines. We prefer not, but there are ways to do that holistically as well. Colloidal silver, aloe, and there's a new product called Restore out. I highly suggest looking that up. That helps to restore the the integrity of the gut lining. Number 4, eat gluten-free, sugar-free, and dairy-free for the duration of your treatment so as to not feed the pathogenic gut bacteria. And number 5, add in probiotics, preferably in the form of raw organic sauerkraut, kefir, organic kimchi, organic miso, kombucha, or kefir soda water. See culturedfoodlife.com, that's Donna Schwenk's website, for some great recipes. And please set aside the idea that you can't get your kids to eat sauerkraut, because you can. It's gold stars, I don't know, rewards, whatever you need to do. My kids eat it every single night with dinner, and it absolutely is possible. There's a trillion good bacteria in one tablespoon of sauerkraut. So these are just some great ways to restore your gut bacteria. Now, if you think about it, other cultures all do this. Japanese cultures, they have miso, they have kimchi's Korean, yogurt is in all the Mediterranean foods, sauerkraut, all these other cultures, they have this with every meal. So just bring these probiotic foods back into your diet to protect yourself. Now, that's for yourself. This is an ask to prevent health issues in your communities. You can do things. Now, and why would you do that? Because first of all, it's not enough for my family or your family to eat organic, because our son's future spouses, our children's future spouses are out there somewhere. And they're likely eating GMOs. And we know now that the Seralini study, they showed that the 3rd generation of rats were sterile. Now, I would like my children's future spouses and my children to be able to procreate and to experience the profound love that it is to have one's own child, if they want to. This is something that is about future generations, and what you decide to feed your children or your grandchildren today absolutely can make a difference. The problem is we don't know when that one bite of food, and I'm sorry to scare you, but a very small level of glyphosate can be an endocrine disruptor which can change hormones. And we just don't know when that would be and how that would happen. So it's so important to think about the entire community. And some things you can do are to have maybe a movie night showing, I'll show some movies later that you can show, movie night or maybe a mom's meetup. And if you think about it, just one person who shares with 15 people, if you have 15 people over, and each one of those 15 people shares with 5 people, who share with 5, that would mean 1,875 people now know about GMOs and glyphosate. If they go out and spend $200 a week on organic food, and $100 of it comes from local organic food, your local farmer's market, that means a $6.5 million injection a year into your local economy, and over $1.8 billion shift to organic food nationwide. Do you think you can do this? Can you tell 15 people about GMOs and glyphosate? Raise your hand if you can tell 15 people. That's awesome. That's millions of people right here, right? So now, why you? Okay, well, okay, I have to go back, sorry. So why you? Well, I have to tell a little story about my mom and what she instilled in me. So it's the first day of my son's life at home, my eldest son, Ben, and he's tiny and frail and pink, and he weighs almost nothing. And I'm holding him and I say, Mom, isn't he amazing? Aren't all babies just amazing? And she looks at me and touches my shoulder and says, we all still are. We all still are. It doesn't slough off. Babies aren't more amazing than you or I. We can do whatever we set our minds to. And if we see ourselves as amazing, we will take on whatever it is that's important to us. We will stop that pipeline. We will stop war. We will transform the food supply because it is right and it's what needs to be done for the future of not only our children but for the entire country. Now, when Gandhi stood before the parliament, they said to him, little man, do you really expect us just to hand India over to you? And he said, yes. He saw his government as an entity that would eventually do the right thing. He saw his government as great, and that made him a great leader. So I invite you tonight to see yourself as amazing, and to see your government and anybody that you come in contact with as great. See your mother-in-law, your daughter-in-law, your school teachers, your friends that come over to your parties as people who are big enough to be able to go out and buy organic food. You know, when you have a house party, invite them over, say, bring organic food. It's an organic potluck. And they may say, well, what the heck do I do? Say, buy organic juice, right? Start a trend in your neighborhood and be the one to stand for their greatness. So that's why you. So here's, I'm going to have some calls to action. Please be the one to call your senators. Here's the phone numbers. I ask you to please put them in your phone, and that number will connect you with your senators automatically. All you have to do is tell them your zip code. So you don't have to know who your senator is to do this. So it's 202-224-3121. And you call them and you tell them to say no on the DARK Act. This is 1599, which means voluntary GMO labeling, labeling GMOs as natural. No safety testing will ever be able to be done by the FDA. They will eliminate state rights, Vermont and Maine and Connecticut, that have passed GMO labeling. They will not be able to have GMO labeling. And the Native Americans that want GMO-free zones and there's like 25 other counties that have passed GMO-free zones, totally wiped out. This is corporate control right here and must be stopped. And this is going up into the Senate to be voted on. October 21st is the first day that it's going to be in the Ag Committee. So we need everybody to call just before and on October 21st. And please say yes on 511. That's Senate Bill 511 for mandatory GMO labeling. And next we ask you to call the EPA to demand that they revoke the license of glyphosate. And that number is 703 703-308-8187. Again, 703-308-8187. And that's Neil Anderson, and he's the director of the Pesticide Review Board.
It's hard to see to write.
What's that?
It's very hard to see to write.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll put it back up at the end. Or you can ask me. I've got the numbers memorized. Okay, so you can also... What's that? We can also host an event on Moms Across America and get a code for free materials for your neighborhood. For $20, you can get a box worth about $125 of about 1,000 flyers that we're very grateful to our sponsors to be able to provide the money for us to print out. And these are family-friendly, beautiful, not scary flyers that are packed with information that are really fun to pass out. So we want to say thank you to our sponsors for that. Now, our food system may be corrupt, but our people are not. They are creative, courageous, and making a huge contribution to our society. And I think you saw an example of that tonight with all the speakers that spoke before me. We can make a difference in our communities, and we can create health and freedom. And I want to say thank you so much for being a part of this evening. I hope we can count on you for your partnership. You can count on Moms Across America for our partnership. We will not stop. We will not give up, because the love for our children will never end. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions? We have time for a few questions? Yes?
Do webinars to reach a greater audience? I have lots of people looking for you tonight. Do you do a webinar that we could refer people to ever?
I think I have about 140 videos on YouTube. And on my website, I have on many of them. There's one that's a 6-minute video, which is really good, short, talks about what GMOs are and glyphosate. And we've had, under Connect, we've had many Google Hangouts, like hour-long Google Hangouts with doctors and scientists, former interviews and stuff like that you can see there. And our YouTube channel also has a lot of different videos. You can find them there, yes. And also data, the scientific data is under data, all these scientific studies as well. Yes? Somebody else?
Can you just put back the slide with the phone number line?
Sure, yep. There we go.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. Do you have all this information on your Facebook page, and can I share it today?
Yes, my Facebook page just has recent posts and some videos, but the website has a lot of information.
Well, I
Yep.
understand this, so I can share it so that you will educate a vast majority through Facebook.
Yes, we do share every day, probably about 6 or 7 times on Facebook. Yeah, and you can go there and find past posts as well. Yes. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, social media is wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Concern I think you should think about is with the organic. I have a concern. We try to go organic, but with the spraying, I've been biking and they're spraying entire fields. If the farmer next door is, quote, organic, that glyphosate and all the other pesticides are using, I wonder if there really is, in a lot of cases, such a thing as organic.
So you're correct that there is contamination. Does that mean there is contamination of organic food? And the problem is that they're not testing for it enough. The organic, the symbol, they're not required to test for glyphosate. It's really bad news. It's only if there's instances where, say, if you were to report spraying and you were to see it going over, then they would have to send somebody out to test for it. The thing is that USDA organic is the best we have right now. And in most cases, it's not, we're not seeing massive contamination. It's definitely lower than conventional or GMO food. It's much lower if there is, glyphosate in the food. And there are much smaller levels, but it's the best we have right now. The only alternative is to grow it yourself. And put in raw organic sauerkraut and combat any glyphosate. Because the good news is, actually I didn't say this, within 1 week you can eliminate 90% of pesticides. Within 2 weeks, 100% of pesticides by going organic, if it's truly organic. So I would say find a good local source, a farmer that you know, and they know, and you can talk to them about it and say, do you have somebody who sprays nearby, and, get to know your farmers. So you do the best you can. Oh, and she's got, I think, the mic over there. Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you're focused on glyphosate and not herbicides in general? Because one of my understandings is that with the rise of glyphosate-resistant weeds, farmers are actually going to be moving more towards other chemicals that are actually considered even more toxic than glyphosate, things like dicamba and 2,4-T. So I'm wondering why the focus on glyphosate and not herbicides?
That's a good question. So 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate. And it's one chemical that you can go to senators or to the EPA and say ban that. If you go to the EPA and say ban all toxic chemicals, you're not going to get a very, they're just not going to be interested. In addition, the entire agriculture system is based on this one chemical. If they do ban it, that means their entire agriculture system is going to have to be transformed. And that means all of the toxic chemicals as well. And when they're saying another toxic chemical is going to be even more toxic, it's more toxic because it's combined with glyphosate. The dicamba that they're using and the 2,4-D, it's all a combination with glyphosate. So if they have to ban glyphosate, this whole system goes down. And we can do this. And we always say, by the way, we want to get off the toxic treadmill of chemical cocktails and chemical farming. We never just say we only want to get rid of glyphosate. It's the entire chemical farming system. Our farmers are ingenious. We have faith in our farmers. They don't need GMOs and toxic chemicals. They absolutely can do without it. So we do always mention all of them, but we go for this one because it's the biggest one. Yes?
Okay, what exactly is the motivation for farmers to plant GMO crops? What do they get out of it?
Well, Monsanto and the people who make the seeds tell them that it will resist pests and weeds. They will, because you can spray these chemicals around them and it will kill all of the weeds around the crop, but it won't kill the crop. Or you don't have to spray chemicals because the chemical is already in the crop and it will just kill any bug that eats it. And you won't have to hire lots of laborers to pull weeds, and it will be a greater yield. You'll have increased yield and maybe even stronger, whatever. They say all kinds of things. Now, the problem is that may have been so for the first 2 or 3 years of GMOs. But after a short period of time, they started to see weed resistance. There's over 100 now weeds that are resistant. They won't die from glyphosate. And there are corn root worms that won't die when they eat the Bt toxin corn. So Mother Nature's getting stronger, and these farmers are seeing a real problem. And this may be why there are farmers now. John Kemp, one of the farmers I mentioned, said he had a conference of 150 farmers, I think 2 years ago, and he asked them, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, let me just say a couple years ago, and he asked them how many farmers in here use Roundup. Every single one of them raised their hand. And then he went back this year and asked them, and only 8 of them raised their hand. So more and more farmers are moving away from this, and this is why I believe Monsanto's stock has dropped. It's dropped 30% in this past year. So people are moving away from it.
Yeah, Zen, why I raised my hand is you might give the advice, say from Don Huber, Richard Ulrey, but everyone in here should be on a strong mineral supplement such as Rich Ulrey or Jerry Shepley provide.
Yes, so when you restore your gut bacteria with good bacteria, you need to also replace the minerals that are being drawn out from the glyphosate. So really good minerals, with all different kinds, potassium, magnesium, vitamin D, calcium, right? You can't just take calcium and not have vitamin D or magnesium. You've got to have really good mineral supplements to put back in as well. That's a good point. Thank you, Bob. And on my website, we also have solutions. We have some that we really like, that we don't get paid for to promote. They're just ones that have worked for our moms.
I
Yes.
just wanted to make 2 comments. There is a book out, Altered Genes, Twisted Truth by Stephen Drucker. If people have not heard about that book, he's here in Iowa. He's a public interest attorney that was on WHO radio. If you haven't read that, I would suggest that. And also, I don't know if you know about the Earth Open Source. It's a GMO Myths and Truths 2nd edition report put out by the United Kingdom. It's a scientific-based, sound, evidence-based report. That's a wonderful report, and it's got glyphosate in it.
Could you say that again a little slower?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's an Earth open source. If you type in GMO Myths and Truths, 2nd edition, it's a free report that's over 300 pages, put out by the United Kingdom, and it's excellent.
And we also have some flyers in the back table that you can take with you. I like stealth activism, like taking the flyers and putting them in doctor's office magazines so that they'll find them. It's always fun. Yes.
I just want to put in a plug for Zen and what we're doing with Refounding a Bold America. Hopefully we can start to begin building a core group of people here in Iowa, because we are launching everything out of Iowa. So if any of you have any interest in getting involved and helping us mobilize Iowa, let Zen know, let Sharon know, Frank know, get to us somehow, because if we could come out with a half a dozen or a dozen people that are committed and passionate as Zen is, it says, okay, I can make a difference, I will make a difference. We love to connect with you, we'll give you support. We're going to help fund this because it does take money. We've got a business model on our, we're a nonprofit, by the way, a 501c3 that we are just forming. And our business model is a B corporation where we give up to 50% of everything that we make back to the people on the planet. That's our commitment. It's a company that Woody and I founded here a few months ago, and now we're working with Zen on it. And I don't want to get too commercial here, but we really do need to address this, and so we're going to pull out all the stops with the Unstoppable Moms, and would love to hear from every one of you in this audience tonight if you care to. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that and say that this Sharon, raise your hand, so if you want to get involved afterwards, please meet Sharon, or if you could put a piece of paper in the back on the table, maybe people could sign up with their names and names and emails. And Bob, Merlin, would you mind if I read the refounding statement?
No.
Sure. Okay, awesome. I happened to bring it. So this is what we came up with about refounding a bold America. We, the mothers, fathers, and elders, declare that all men, women, and children are created equal, that endowed by our Creator, we are born with certain unalienable rights of life, health, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, we are creating a just government amongst men and women with the consent of the governed, who first put the safety, education, and well-being of our future, the children and our environment first. These rights shall not be compromised by corporations, governments, or individuals regardless of wealth or influence, and said rights shall be protected in the actions of every individual, organization, religion, corporation, or government. We declare a new focus of creation for our society, which is a clean, healthy, toxin-free, sustainable, and prosperous planet which grows in harmony with nature, giving our children and all life the best possible future. We declare as a human race that our goal is no longer to survive through short-term power struggles, war, and restriction of resources, but to thrive with generous international co-creation and the long-term healthy future as the goal. Our success shall be reflected in the future we provide for our children. Just to start. Any other questions?
Something that I think you might want to do some research on. My wife's dad on farmers' rates of cancer, and people that work on golf courses, and the chemical companies that spray your yards and your neighbors and so on.
That's a great idea, and there are lawsuits that are already happening. There's one for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that I just posted on my Facebook page. There's another one for a woman in New York that spilled Roundup on her while she was gardening. And there's another one from a man who has bone cancer in California. So the lawsuits against Monsanto are starting, and I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon. So your farmer friends, and yeah, if they want to get involved, there are lawsuits out there.
Also Parkinson's.
And Parkinson's, I actually had a friend who said her dad was treated for Parkinson's, and part of the protocol was to detox for glyphosate. Sort of an unspoken protocol amongst doctors now.
My question is related to the research idea. You said the research you were citing was from the UK, correct? And wasn't the study you talked about from France? The
Seralini?
Seralini?
Yeah, they're from all over there's studies from all over the world now. Yeah.
Right, because one of the questions I get when I talk about this is, well, where's the research? You know, and I said, well, you know, it is no accident that there's no research studies that we...
No, there are now. There's over, I believe, over 200 studies just showing harm from glyphosate. And GMO Free USA shows over 2,000 studies on GMOs and glyphosate on their website. They've documented all of them. There's many, many studies showing harm.
Okay, GMO, what was that?
GMO Free USA.
GMO Free USA.
Yeah, they show over 2,000 studies just on GMOs and glyphosate.
Because your statistics up there, I'd like to really, those are on your site, right?
Yes, under data. We don't have all of the hundreds of studies just because it's too overwhelming. So I've picked out my favorites, sort of, and put them on there, the ones that are really pertinent. Like the one that shows neurotoxicity, the one that shows infertility and sterility, the one that shows Anthony, Samsel, and Senef, the one that talks about many different diseases, 40 different diseases related to glyphosate. There's the really important ones on there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can any doctor test you for glyphosate? How is that? I mean, do you just go to your...
It's not covered by insurance, so you have to do it privately right now. And the only lab that I know of right now is the one that's through our website, and we can't reveal who that is because too many of the labs have... No, there's two of them, sorry. There's Microbe Innotech, but their methodology is not considered valid by the EPA right now. So when we did our testing for breast milk, they won't consider that valid, so we can't sue based on that data. So that's why we need to wait for this other 200-person study that's being done on women in their breast milk. And after those results come out, we may be able to take legal action.
Who do you use for the study that we can get through your site?
I can't say who that lab is.
But fine,
Yeah.
you can't say, but there's a lab that you trust.
Yes, and it goes through a mailbox, so you don't know who it is when you buy it. But yeah, it's a lab that we trust, and it's trusted internationally by other international scientists as well. And over 3,000 people have sent in their urine or water for testing there, and the results that are coming back are quite high for the U.S. in the urine. Yeah.
Describe the difference between why, I understand why you choose water and urine, but I'm not sure I'd answer it the same way you would. Would you explain why urine, why water?
Because, well, so the opposition said, all these mom bloggers are saying that their children get better when they get off GMOs and glyphosate, but they have no documented proof. They have no evidence. So the first thing I thought of is, well, we have to link GMOs and glyphosate inside of our children to their illness. If they have illnesses, is it related? Is it correlate? So you can't test their blood yet. There's no blood testing, and if there were, it would be much more difficult to test their blood and much more expensive. So we went for urine. And then, of course, you want to see, well, is it just the food, or could it be the water? So that's why I test the tap water as well, and that's easy to do. So, and it was tested here in Iowa as well, and Merlin tested and found it in 3 different cities, and the levels were 0.086, which is about the same that was in my tap water in California. And that is very close to the 0.1 parts per billion, right? 0.086, which destroys gut bacteria. The problem is, though, that's just in one sample. I mean, you consume lots of water and lots of food throughout the day, and as we can see through breast milk, there is evidence of it bioaccumulating. So it really is of concern, and we really do suggest reverse osmosis and adding the minerals back in. Yes?
Are you related to Frank Honeycutt?
No, I don't know Frank Honeycutt.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, I was just going to point out that, so you talk about the lawsuits, so this is even more why it's more important to keep bringing up the TPP, because a big part of that is the inability to sue.
Yes, so she mentions the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In Europe, it's called the TTIP, and is it TTAP in Asia. It's a huge conglomerate of corporations which have gotten together and written laws for a trade agreement which is supposed to balance the playing field between the US and China. China has such a control, huge amount of power over our trade agreements right now. It's supposed to balance the playing field between all the other Asian countries and many other countries, giving them more rights to trade with us freely. Meaning, okay, so we'll take your, stuff from the Philippines, but you have to take our GMOs. And you can't label GMOs because that would be considered a trade barrier. So with this agreement, no country would be able to label GMOs because it would be considered a trade barrier. And they would be able to sue these countries, like Germany or France, and they would go to a special court, which is, of course, there's 3 or 4 judges that are picked out by the chemical corporations. This is the system they set up. It's completely, and it's utterly aligned for them to have global control. And it's not just the GMO situation. There's privacy on the internet. Your medicines could come from China, made of God knows what, not labeled, country of origin. They're already doing that with the meat. The meat's going to China, chicken's going to China, being processed and being sent back, and we have no idea that it's been there. And also jobs, fair trade and labor and all that sort of thing. It's just a devastating trade agreement, and I urge you to get involved and to look into it and to speak up to your senators as well. And that number that you got, you can call them for anything you want, including the TPP. And that is coming around this fall. They're talking about it, but it looks like it might come up more for vote in the spring. But definitely they need to hear about it in the fall.
Yeah. You mentioned this, and I think Merlin ought to actually give the results. What we're doing at Refounding America is going to every community throughout Iowa and testing municipal water. Water comes in your tap. Also testing the reverse osmosis water. It comes out of your tap.
Yeah, you want to make sure that tested.
That, in fact, you will not find that it's clean. And just know that.
I haven't seen that, but if you've tested reverse osmosis filters, they could all be different. It could not work. Yeah.
But it can be massively done.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be very important for people to know what's in municipal water, what's coming out of the tap. Mm-hmm. And of course, we can't test every home for their personal reverse osmosis system, but there's going to be wide testing so that you know what everybody thinks they're protected by reverse osmosis. The truth is they're not.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I tested my water, and it's not that it's protected. I believe we are still getting subjected to small amounts of glyphosate. I mean, there are nanoparticles that you can't test for, but that's why we, need to start taking steps now to restore your gut bacteria, to put in good probiotics. We need to take whatever actions we can, because it's just not feasible for all of us to just leave the country. We have to do something about it now. And I do want to say that this whole idea of Refounding America, we didn't go into in great detail, but the idea would be to have leaders in every county of moms or grandmas that want to support their communities in getting better, have little moms meetups, movie nights, gatherings where you can have tea. This is what they used to do in the 60s with the women's rights. They would have Conscious Friday evenings, and the women would get together and gather and talk about how they're going to get women's rights, and we need to do that again. I need to tell this story too. In the Capitol, in DC, there is a Native American museum, and there's a big, beautiful headdress that shows, it's a Native American headdress, and underneath it says, "To this day, the Native American tribal leaders are elected by the mothers of the tribe, and the mothers continue to hold the power to remove a leader based on lack of performance." Now, why is this? This is because the community trusts that a mother's commitment is in alignment with their best interest, right? With the community's best interest. That's just a universal trust. We need to bring that trust back. We need to bring that power back and that acknowledgement back. We need to have mothers and grandmothers and women empowered in every community. And in Iowa, if we could get leaders, one in every community, and we could have webinars, and we could have speaker training, and we could have little gathering nights at the library or whatever, and sharing this information. I mean, this is a new pathway to freedom. This is access to a new future. You saw it from the testimonials. We have hundreds of testimonials like this. Your son does not have to have autism for the rest of his life. Your mother does not have to die from diabetes. I firmly believe this. You can transform the health of your communities. And we just need a few leaders to stand up and say, I will share this information with my communities. And it will be worth more than millions of dollars that the corporations have. We can absolutely take back our health. So I think that we should call it a night. Thank you so much.